wind howling off Lake Michigan carries a biting chill that seems to penetrate the very soul of anyone standing on Michigan Avenue. Rising from the pavement like a fortress of dark memories is the Congress Plaza Hotel. It is a massive structure that has loomed over the city of Chicago for more than a century. The facade is stoic and imposing, with rows of dark windows that look like unblinking eyes staring out across the water. Locals hurry past the entrance with their heads down, while tourists pause to take photos of the grand architecture, unaware of the entities that watch from within. This is not merely a hotel, but a vessel for the tortured spirits of the Gilded Age. Constructed in the year 1893 to accommodate visitors for the world's Columbian Exposition, the hotel was designed to embody luxury and sophistication. It was meant to be a crowning jewel of Chicago hospitality, where the wealthy and the powerful could display their status. Yet beneath the veneer of marble floors and crystal chandeliers lay a foundation of darkness. The era was one of immense disparity, where the ultra-rich dined on fine china, while the poor starved in the shadows. The Congress Plaza Hotel absorbed the energy of this turbulent time. It became a playground for the elite, but also a sanctuary for those with nefarious intentions who sought to hide their sins behind closed doors. As the sun sets over the city, the atmosphere inside the hotel undergoes a subtle and unsettling shift. The grand lobby, which bustles with activity during the daylight hours, transforms into a cavern of echoing footsteps and elongated shadows. The air grows heavy and stagnant, even with the modern ventilation systems running. Guests often report a feeling of being watched as they check in at the front desk. It is a sensation of prickling heat on the back of the neck, as if invisible eyes are scrutinizing their every move. The elevator doors open and close of their own, a cord inviting people to step into the steel cages that will carry them up into the dark heart of the building. One of the most notorious figures associated with the history of the hotel is the infamous gangster Alphonse Gabriel Capone. During the height of his power in the Roaring Twenties, Capone reportedly used the hotel as his headquarters. It is said he occupied a suite on the 8th floor, where he could conduct his illicit business with impunity. The staff whispered of armed guards patrolling the hallways, and the smell of cigar smoke that lingered long after the men had departed. But Capone did not just conduct business here. He wove in his darkness into the very fabric of the building, leaving behind a stain that no amount of renovation could ever scrub away. The ghost of Alphonse Gabriel Capone is not the only remnant of the criminal underworld that haunts these corridors. Legend speaks of a man known as Peg Leg Johnny, who was a vagrant murdered within the hotel walls. His spirit is said to be a mischievous, one often blamed for the unexplained flickering of lights and the sudden malfunctioning of electronic devices. Guests have reported the distinct sound of a heavy boot dragging across the floorboards, followed by a hollow thud. It is a rhythmic and terrifying sound that approaches bedroom doors in the dead of night, only to cease abruptly when the terrified occupant gathers the courage to investigate the hallway. The 12th floor stands out as a focal point for some of the most disturbing paranormal activity reported in the entire building. Housekeepers have long dreaded being assigned to this specific floor due to the overwhelming sense of dread that permeates the narrow corridors. Many employees have quit their jobs after a single shift on the 12th floor, refusing to ever speak of what they witnessed. They describe the air as feeling thick and viscous, like walking through invisible water. The temperature drops dramatically in certain spots, creating cold pockets that cause breath to mist in the air, even in the height of a humid Chicago summer. One particularly harrowing tale involves a young boy who haunts the north wing of the 12th floor. Guests have described seeing a translucent figure of a child dressed in clothing from the early 20th century. He stands silently at the end of the long hallway, staring blankly at those who dare to make eye contact. He does not speak or move, but his presence radiates a profound sadness that can bring grown men to tears. Some believe he was the child of a guest who met a tragic end falling from a window while his parents were distracted. His spirit remains trapped in a perpetual state of confusion, waiting for a mother who will never return. Room 441 is perhaps the most feared location within the massive hotel. It is a room that security guards avoid whenever possible, and guests are often moved from due to excessive noise complaints when no one is staying next door. Those who have braved a night in room 441 tell stories of a shadow woman who manifests at the foot of the bed. She appears as a silhouette darker than the surrounding night, blocking out the faint light from the street lamps outside. She does not scream or attack, but simply stands there watching the sleeper with an intensity that wakes them from their deepest dreams in a state of absolute terror. A guest named Clara visited Chicago for a business conference and found herself checked into room 441 late one rainy Tuesday. She was a skeptic of the supernatural and laughed off the warnings from the bellman about the history of the room. She unpacked her suitcase and settled into the large bed, enjoying the sound of the rain against the glass. The room felt cold, but she attributed it to the drafty windows of an old building. As she drifted off to sleep, she felt the mattress depress beside her, as if someone had just sat down. She opened her eyes, expecting to see nothing but empty space. Instead of emptiness, Clara saw the fabric of the bedspread indented by an invisible weight. The air in the room froze, and the sound of the rain seemed to fade into a dull, muffled hum. She could not move her limbs, as a paralysis took took hold of her body. A low, guttural growl emanated from the corner of the room near the wardrobe. It was not the sound of an animal, but a human voice distorted by rage and pain. The shadow woman emerged from the gloom, gliding across the floor without moving her legs. Clara tried to scream, but her throat was constricted by an unseen force that squeezed the air from her lungs. The entity leaned over Clara, her face, a featureless void of swirling darkness. The sheer malevolence radiating from the figure was palpable, like heat from an open oven. Clara squeezed her eyes shut and mentally recited a prayer, hoping for the nightmare to end. The pressure on her chest increased, making it nearly impossible to breathe. She felt cold fingers brush against her cheek, tracing the line of her jaw with an icy touch that burned the skin. The growling grew louder, filling the room with a cacophony of hate that seemed to vibrate the very walls. Then, as quickly as it began, the weight lifted. Clara gasped for air, sitting bolt upright in the bed while clutching the sheets to her chest. The room was empty, and the sound of the rain returned to its normal volume. She did not wait for morning. She threw her belongings into her suitcase and fled the room, running down the hallway to the elevators. The doors opened immediately, as if waiting for her, and she descended to the lobby in a daze. The night clerk did not ask questions as she tossed her key card on the counter and ran out into the rainy Chicago night. She never returned to the Congress Plaza Hotel. The Gold Room is another area of the hotel that serves as a stage for the supernatural. It is one of the most beautiful ballrooms in Chicago, featuring intricate gold leaf detailing and a stunning ceiling mural. However, it is also a place where the past bleeds into the present with terrifying frequency. Staff members setting up for weddings have reported hearing the sounds of a party in full swing when the room is completely empty. The clinking of glasses and the murmur of conversation drift through the air, accompanied by the faint strains of piano music from a bygone era. During a wedding reception in the Gold Room, a photographer captured an image that defied explanation. While reviewing his shots on a digital camera, he noticed a figure standing on the balcony overlooking the dance floor. It was a man in a tuxedo, but his legs were missing below the knees, appearing to float in midair. The guests in the photo seemed oblivious to the watcher above, but the expression on the face of the apparition was one of pure malice. The photographer showed the image to the hotel manager, who simply nodded and advised him to delete it. Security guards who work the night shift have the most chilling stories to tell about the Congress Plaza Hotel. They patrol the empty banquet halls and the labyrinthine corridors of the basement where the laundry facilities are located. One guard named Thomas reported seeing a gloved hand reach out from a solid brick wall in the lower levels. The hand beckoned to him, curling a finger in a gesture to come closer. Thomas froze in his tracks, his flashlight beam trembling as it illuminated the impossible sight. The hand was pale, and Gaunt wearing a white glove stained with what looked like dried blood. Thomas backed away, slowly refusing to turn his back on the horrific appendage. As he retreated, the hand retreated back into the wall, vanishing, as if it had been absorbed by the masonry. He radioed for backup, but when his colleague arrived, there was no trace of the disturbance. The wall was solid brick cold and unyielding to the touch. Thomas requested a transfer to the day shift immediately after the incident. He told his superiors that the basement felt like a tomb, and that something down there was hungry for the living. He was not the first guard to make such a claim. The Florentine room was originally built as a roller skating rink for the guests, but now serves as a banquet hall. It is here that guests often report the sound of humming. It is a female voice, humming a lullaby that is both sweet and terribly sad. The melody drifts through the room, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere, all at once. Those who investigate the sound find themselves walking in circles, chasing a voice that always stays just out of reach. Some claim the voice belongs to a woman who took her own life in the hotel after being abandoned by her lover. Suicide is a dark theme that runs through the history of the Congress Plaza Hotel. Over the decades, many despairing souls have chosen to end their lives by jumping from the upper windows or taking poison within their rooms. The emotional residue of these tragic events seems to have imprinted on the building, creating a feedback loop of sorrow. Guests who are already feeling down or depressed often find their emotions amplified during their stay. They report sudden onsets of weeping and feelings of hopelessness that vanish as soon as they leave the premises. Dr. Herman Webster Mudgett, better known as the serial killer H.H. Holmes, is often linked to the lore of the hotel. While his infamous murder castle was located several miles away, legend says he frequented the lobby of the Congress Plaza Hotel to scout for victims during the World's Fair. Some believe his dark energy contributes to the malevolent atmosphere of the place. Witnesses have described seeing a man with a thick mustache and a bowler hat standing in the shadows of the lobby, watching young women with a predatory gaze before vanishing into thin air. In the south tower of the hotel, there is a sealed door that has been the subject of much speculation. Staff members claim that behind the door lies a room that was boarded up decades ago due to extreme paranormal activity. No key card opens it, and the handle has been removed, leaving only a flat metal plate. Those who put their ear to the wood report hearing scratching sounds from the inside, as if something is trying to claw its way out. The hotel management refuses to acknowledge the existence of the room or explain why it remains sealed off from the rest of the floor. A maintenance worker named David was once tasked with repairing a leaky pipe in the ceiling near the sealed room. He set up his ladder and climbed into the crawl space, his flashlight cutting through the dust and cobwebs. As he worked, he heard a voice whisper his name from the darkness, just inches from his ear. He jerked his head back, striking it against a wooden beam. The whisper came again, louder this time, sounding like a rasping hiss. David scrambled down the ladder, leaving his tools behind, and refused to go back up into the ceiling. The elevators in the Congress Plaza Hotel seemed to possess a mind of their own. They frequently stop on floors that no one has selected, opening their doors to empty, dark hallways. Guests waiting in the lobby watch as the floor indicators light up in random patterns, racing up and down the shaft. One guest reported getting into an elevator on the 4th floor, intending to go down to the lobby. Instead, the car shot upwards at a terrifying speed, bypassing all buttons and stopping abruptly on the 12th floor. The doors opened to reveal a long corridor shrouded in complete darkness. Another terrifying entity is known simply as the Ragged Man. He is described as a homeless man wearing tattered clothing that reeks of wet wool and decay. He appears in the hallways late at night, shuffling towards guests with an outstretched hand. When people recoil or try to move away, he dissolves into a mist, leaving behind only the foul odor of rot. Some historians believe he may have been a worker who died during the construction of the hotel and was buried in an unmarked grave beneath the foundation. The grand ballroom has hosted presidents and celebrities, but it also hosts the uninvited dead. During quiet periods, staff have reported seeing a woman in a Victorian-style dress dancing alone in the center of the floor. She spins and twirls to music that only she can hear, her face upturned in a look of ecstasy. If approached, she stops dancing and turns to face the intruder. Her face transforms from beautiful to skeletal in the blink of an eye, causing the witness to flee in terror. She is believed to be a bride who died the night before her wedding. The basement of the hotel is a labyrinth of tunnels and storage rooms that stretch deep underground. It is rumored that these tunnels were used during Prohibition to transport illegal alcohol from the lakefront to the hotel. The air down there is stagnant and cold, carrying the scent of mold and old earth. Employees hate going down to the basement alone. They speak of shadows that detach themselves from the walls and follow them as they walk. The feeling of being hunted is overwhelming, forcing them to complete their tasks with haste. One particularly brave paranormal investigation team was granted permission to spend a night in the basement. They set up cameras and audio recorders in the darkest corners of the tunnels. Within an hour, their equipment began to malfunction. Batteries drained instantly, and cameras turned off without explanation. When they reviewed the audio recordings, later they heard distinct voices speaking in a rough dialect. One voice clearly said, "Get out," while another laughed a dry, humorless sound that chilled them to the bone. The video footage showed orbs of light darting aggressively around the investigators' heads. The haunting of the Congress Plaza Hotel is not limited to the interior. Pedestrians walking past the building on Michigan Avenue have reported seeing faces pressed against the glass of the upper floor windows. These faces look distressed, with mouths open in silent screams. When the pedestrians look again, or point the faces out to others, the windows are empty. It is as if the trapped souls are pleading for help, begging to be released from the stone prison that binds them to this earthly plane. There is a story of a security guard who was patrolling the roof of the hotel on a windy night. He looked out over the city, admiring the lights of Chicago. Suddenly, he felt a pair of hands shove him violently from behind. He stumbled forward, barely catching himself on the railing before falling to his death. He spun around to confront his attacker, but the roof was empty. He was alone with the wind and the humming of the ventilation units. He resigned the next morning, unwilling to risk his life for a paycheck. The architecture of the hotel itself seems designed to trap energy. The long corridors act as conduits for the spirits, channeling them from room to room. The mirrors in the lobby and the ballrooms are said to be portals, allowing entities to pass between dimensions. Guests are advised not to stare into the mirrors for too long, especially after midnight. Some have claimed to see their own reflections distort and change, revealing a monstrous version of themselves looking back. Others have seen faces standing behind them in the reflection, only to turn around and find no one there. Despite the numerous reports of paranormal activity, the Congress Plaza Hotel remains open for business. It embraces its reputation, hosting Halloween balls and acknowledging its haunted history. However, for the staff who work the graveyard shift, the hauntings are not a marketing gimmick. They are a terrifying reality that they must endure every night. They carry crucifixes and salt in their pockets, hoping to ward off the darkness that dwells within the walls. They know that the hotel is never truly asleep. The legacy of the Congress Plaza Hotel is written in stone and spirit. It is a place where the opulence of the past meets the horror of the unknown. Every creaking floorboard and flickering light tells a story of tragedy and despair. The ghosts that inhabit this space are not merely echoes. They are active participants in the daily life of the building, feeding on the fear of the living. As long as the hotel stands, the spirits will remain bound to the location by unfinished business and tragic ends. Leaving the hotel guests often feel a sense of relief washing over them as they step out onto the busy street. The noise of the traffic and the bustle of the city serve as a grounding force, pulling them back to reality. But for some, the experience follows them home. They find that the nightmares continue long after they have checked out. They see shadows in the corners of their own bedrooms, and hear the faint sound of humming in their ears. The Congress Plaza Hotel does not let go of its guests easily. The sun rises over Lake Michigan, casting a golden light on the facade of the hotel. The windows reflect the dawn, hiding the darkness that lies within. A new day begins, and new guests arrive dragging their suitcases up the grand steps. They are unaware of the eyes watching them from the shadows of the lobby. They do not know that they are stepping into one of the most haunted places in America. The cycle continues, as it has for over a century, and the hotel waits to claim its next victim in the unending story of the macabre. As you walk away from the towering structure, the feeling of being watched slowly fades, but the memory remains branded in your mind. The Congress Plaza Hotel is a monument to a time when demons walked among men in fine suits. It is a puzzle box of horror that can never be fully solved. The wind picks up again, howling through the streets of Chicago, whispering the names of the dead. You pull your coat tighter and walk faster, grateful to be outside in the cold, fresh air, rather than trapped inside the gilded cage. The final thought that lingers is not just of the ghosts, but of the darkness that exists in the human heart. The hotel is merely a mirror, reflecting the violence and greed of the city it calls home. It stands as a warning to those who seek power and pleasure at any cost. The spirits are trapped, but perhaps the living are the ones who are truly haunted. The Congress Plaza Hotel remains a silent sentinel on the avenue, keeping its secrets safe behind walls of brick and mortar, waiting for the sun to go down once again.